what happens is like you can only sacrifice yourself so many times before your body starts to like literally scream at you, you know? And something I see a lot in adult children of codependent families is this perception of obligation and this perception of responsibility and feeling stuck.
Welcome back to another session for the soul.
Did I get in your head with the sessions
Yes.
with? Yeah, I've entered your subconscious. I'm so sorry. For context, I keep wanting to say sessions with the soul, and I don't know where that came from, and I don't know why that came, but it did. And now every time I go to say it, there's like a hesitation and fear that I'm going to say the wrong thing.
Yeah.
I'm like, a session from the soul. Like, it's just not good. So I was telling, we will. I was telling Kayla about it, and now I'm doing it to her. So
yeah.
Oops.
We're figuring it out, guys. We're figuring it out.
We are. Thank you for being on this journey with us.
Yeah. So this episode, we're going to be talking about codependency.
Oh my goodness.
I'm so excited. I feel like this resonates with so many people, even if they don't know it yet, and you're going to help them know it.
Exactly. I'm going to be the mirror you guys didn't want.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. But yeah, I'm really excited. I think that, you know, there's so much we could cover in this, and it's so nuanced. But I'm excited. We're just going to dive right in, I guess.
Yeah.
So my favorite are notes. Codependency. What is it? Who has it? Well,
this is how detailed we are, you guys.
What is it? Who's got it? Okay. Is it you?
Yes.
Definitely me. But so like on a textbook level, the definition of codependency is emotional reliance on an individual, someone else, typically who is like struggling, who like needs caring for, or like is struggling with addiction or substance use of some sort. I just would like to preface this with saying that a lot of these like terms were coined in the 70s, actually.
Mm-hmm.
And they were kind of like, these concepts were introduced then. And how it appears today and the way we see it show up today is so much different than that. And, or, you know, so much more, there's so much more to it than just like that idea of it really being like localized to people with addiction, or, you know, only being like in marital relationships. I think that's another thing, or like romantic relationships. We often like think of codependency as like a partnership between an addict and then the caregiver. And I am here to tell you, no, that's not always the reality. Yes, that can be like where it starts. Maybe it started generations ago, and maybe it's being passed down through a family. That's often what I see. Yeah. And that's usually, that's honestly like in the modern world, a lot of codependency looks like that. And does it bleed into other places? Yeah, absolutely. Like, I didn't learn codependency in my romantic relationships. I brought it there because, and I attracted partners, and I was in partnerships that, you know, played out codependency, but not because of those specific terms. So that's like the textbook idea, but in a more like, you know, in a more tangible way, I always just consider it as like this not really knowing where we end and another person begins. It's like the blurred lines of emotional responsibility, of just autonomy. And that's been, I think, such a big piece of my work and understanding enmeshment and codependency, is it really is like, I mean, the word enmeshment is very encompassing.
What does that look like in a relationship, like enmeshed relationships, whether it be romantic or familial relations? Tell us. Do you have any examples?
Stop. Yeah. So like a great example of that would be like, maybe it's a mother and a daughter, and the mother is stressed out, overworked, overwhelmed, like she's got a lot on her plate, right? And so maybe she is not, like we talked about in the last episode, her nervous system is really dysregulated. And so she might be really short, doesn't have space, very disconnected, and just like in survival mode, right?
Yeah.
And an enmeshed relationship would really look like the child picking up on those cues and feeling responsible to regulate or solve that emotional experience for the parent. It also looks like sort of like jealousy, like it's really interesting, and we will definitely get into this, but kind of like part of enmeshed codependency and familial enmeshment is like this: whenever someone starts to individualize, there's like a deep jealousy or a threat, feeling like abandonment is coming up. And so it might look like, Mom, I want to go to my friend's house, or maybe your partner, I'm going to go get coffee with my girlfriend, and your partner might feel incredibly threatened by that.
Almost like it's almost like territorial over like, no, but you're mine. Like, this is not what
Absolutely.
we do here.
Absolutely. You know what? I'm going to use this example, and I would like to apologize to anyone who this is triggering for. But like, say you're a grandparent and your child is going to have your grandkids babysat by someone else, and that triggers a deep jealousy, a deep, when really it's just like, hey, you know, the kids want to hang out with this person and want to go play and have fun.
Yeah.
But you internalize that as like, you're not needed, you're not good enough, it's rejection.
Yeah.
And so that is another great example of how it kind of shows up, that ownership, that territorial behavior. So it's a lot of overlapping, like when you think of like a Venn diagram, like the overlap in the center,
Yeah.
it's all of that area of just whether it's emotional or like actually a literal problem, you know. It can be taking on the burden of someone's health, taking on the burden of someone's work. You might not even work in that job, in that field, but you're carrying the burden as the codependent person in the relationship. You're carrying that burden. And I also want to share with everyone who's listening that I think traditionally the way we like look at these is like there's a, whether it's there's like a narcissist or a codependent in the relationship, or there's the user and the codependent in the relationship. But I actually see so many codependent people dating each other or in relationships with each other, two codependent people together. And that's not really what, there's not a lot of information. I feel like when you read books about it, there's some really great resources out there on just educating yourself on codependency, whether it's like through Al-Anon, which is the program for children of addicts. It's like AA, but for the kids of the addict. Or through, there's, I think her name's Melody Beatty. Melanie Beatty? Melody? I don't know, you guys. But she has a book called
Codependent No More.
Yes,
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm like,
the OG. She's like the OG codependency.
She
woman.
is. I just put that on my bookshelf last night when I was, or the other day when I was organizing, and I looked at it because she actually revised she published a revised edition like last year. And
I think there's a new one too, like Beyond Codependency or
yes,
something.
I haven't, I don't think I've made my way all the way through that. Sometimes reading a book can take me some time.
Years sometimes. I mean, let's be honest. We sometimes
no,
it
literally
can take a while.
I like to just hop around too.
Yeah.
I'm not a linear reader, so and I wish I was kidding. This is why stories just don't work for me.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, nah, that doesn't sound interesting. Let me hop to chapter 5.
Yeah.
But yeah, she's a great resource just for like learning about codependency and also like especially children of addiction.
Yeah.
Because obviously like that's kind of where a lot of this started for a lot of people, or kind of maybe if we look at codependency as a generational trauma, sort of. When we go backward and we start to look at like what that looks like, a lot of people can take it back to and place it back to, honestly, immigration, like migrating from the homeland. When I first started like sharing my codependent journey, I was working with a business coach, and she was like, "Are you guys first generation immigrants?" And I was like, we're sixth generation immigrants in the same town we immigrated to. So migrated to, I don't know. We just never left.
Yeah.
And she was like, "Oh, that's so crazy, because you're the dynamics in your family are very like fresh off the boat." And I was like, "Yeah, fresh off the boat in 1850, babe." Like,
yeah, you're like, it's been a
no.
while.
Yeah. I'm like, no, just passing it around, passing it down.
Yeah.
But when we look at like those things, and the experience of going on a journey like that, and then often for a lot of like migrant families, whether that was more recent or hundreds of years ago, it was actually really common for alcoholism and addiction to take root in a lot of those places. And I think in America in general, we have a lot of that.
Yeah, we do. What's so special or like so unique? Like why do people have the view? Because I've heard this too, especially working in addiction, the field of addiction. Like what is it about addiction that people are like, oh, that's kind of like a prerequisite to codependency? Like why is that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think that I think it's multifaceted, honestly, but first and foremost, I do think there is the dynamic of needing to be needed. And when you are struggling with all of these things like unworthiness, because like, and this is kind of, I'm hopping around a little bit, but like we will talk a little bit about, the like key component unworthiness has, and like self-worth really plays a role into codependency. But you have a dysregulated person, and you're either trying to regulate through being needed, caring for someone else, deeply like being able to solve all their problems, getting your worth outside of yourself, or right when you don't have that, it's super uncomfortable. And you can either become the addict, or you're the person caring for the addict, and that's how you get your worth of like being needed, and you're getting fulfilled by cleaning up their messes, taking care of them. But I do see I struggled with this. I struggled with addiction for years, not because I just was an addict out of the gate. No, I was codependent, and then got removed from my codependent environment. And I was like, wait, I'm not needed anymore. I need to get stoned about this.
Yeah.
For literally years.
Yeah.
And then that just became like, I think like we've talked about, and we talked about in the last episode, I think, the regulation, the need for regulation, emotional regulation, because that comes from the counterpart. And when you don't have a counterpart, it's like you're just looking for anything to regulate. And if you don't have the tools, or maybe you're not aware, and for so many years, like I was aware of the codependency. I became aware of it when I was in like third grade, when I started going to therapy for the first time. I was like probably 8 years old when I first started going to a therapist, and just being aware, because I grew up in an alcoholic environment, and my mom was raised by an alcoholic as well. And so she was carrying codependency from childhood into her marriage. And then that was kind of, I became her codependent her like emotional regulation or codependent counterpart when my dad was in the thick of addiction. Because it was like, it's super unpredictable being with an addict, or having that environment. And so my mom just was like so desperate to get some help for all of us. And
Mhm.
that's where I started to really go to therapy and really learned about like the enmeshment between me and my mom, on and off for like the next, until I was 18. But yeah, it was a journey. It was
Yeah.
crazy.
Well, it speaks like that. Your family history speaks to like the generational piece of something like codependency, any sort of like behavioral pattern, like we talked about in the last episode of nervous system patterning as well. When you have these patterns or these frameworks that have been established, they're deeply ingrained. And so every generation you look back, you can look and see like, oh, this makes so much sense why it is the way it is. And just speaking to, if you haven't listened to our previous episode, I would recommend doing that because we talk a little bit about recognizing the patterns and not recognizing with blame, but recognizing with like, oh, this makes a lot of sense.
Yeah,
And recognizing like everyone's doing the best they can. And most people are trying to do better than the previous generation to better a life for their children and grandchildren and all of that. But it's these patterns of codependency, patterns of addiction, patterns of massive dysregulation, abuse, trauma, all of these things are it becomes like a thread that is weaved through across generations of
absolutely.
people. And so yeah, looking at it through that lens, I think can be really helpful to like create an understanding and a compassion and also be like, oh, I got to do something different.
Absolutely. That's and like really understanding like the agency of needing to do something different
Yeah.
because like this is hilarious. A huge part of my codependency has been being like so compassionate for my parents
Mm,
and like um just like it's not their fault. They don't understand. They
mm,
like or like what happened to them is not their fault. And then feeling like turning that into like,
sure.
so it's my responsibility to solve
Mm.
this for all of us. And no.
That was crafty.
Thank
Yeah.
you. I spun it real good. Like,
Yeah.
oh, like I can't do that. I can't abandon them. I can't walk away. I can't
Mm,
have autonomy.
yeah.
I need to live with them into my 30s.
Hmm.
Just kidding. Rewrote that story, guys. Um, but you touched on something really important. Like my dad came from a really abusive environment and he has been on his own since he was 12 years old
Yeah.
and had no one to help him regulate, understand.
Hmm.
And so it like when I look at when he started to um use alcohol as a coping mechanism to cope with being in a relationship that felt so unfamiliar
Yeah.
because my mom was like so nurturing and so loving, like
Yeah.
having all these kids to care for, like just a huge shift in life.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, that makes sense that you started to drink the way that you did. And
Yeah.
um as an adult, like as a kid, it was so easy to be like, angry or feel like that frustration of like, how could you do this? Or why do you choose this?
Sure.
Because a big thing that happens, I think, for anyone listening, just to give context, is like, as Kayla and I kind of talked about in the last episode about the attunement to like the caregivers,
Yeah.
whether they're present or not, or their subtle like shifts in their tension in their chest or their facial expressions, things like that. We're picking up on those.
Yeah.
Kids are so attuned.
Yes.
We as a society are like, oh, it won't affect their kids. They don't get it.
We don't give them enough credit.
We do not give them enough credit because they are so tuned into us as
Yes.
adults. And um I I was very tuned into both of my parents and I a lot of kids in that situation, if you're not present as a parent, if you're disassociating with your phone, with alcohol, with drugs, with whatever, you're like, as kids, their kid brain internalizes that as rejection and as
Yeah.
not being present. So, and then that, starts to pattern sort of that, like, this
Yeah.
brings us to like that codependent behavior of unworthiness, because your kid brain cannot rationalize the stress of work and bills and real life and all of that. Your kid brain just says, oh, I'm not good enough. They don't want to be with me.
Yeah.
I'm not good enough. They don't love me. That's why they are abusing. That's why he's drunk every night, because of me. And so a kid brain like cannot comprehend that. And as a kid, I felt I carried that. And as an adult who then struggled with addiction, I literally was like, oh my God, Dad, I felt I was sorry, you know, just in that, like, I had no idea what he was struggling with, not to excuse or disregard the damage that addiction does to families, because it's real. And like, you know, this, and especially like in your previous career, like it's so damaging. And so, you know, just acknowledging that, like, it's so easy as adults to kind of write kids off, but actually we're patterning them for adult life. And then, you know, as a young adult, like in my early teens, not really like fully understanding codependency, because I mean, my frontal cortex was not developed and all the things. I just was, I had really intense self-loathing for a lot of years. Did not like myself, very insecure. And my parents would be like, "Why do you feel this way? Oh my God, like what happened in your life to make you feel like you're awful, or you're not lovable, or you're unworthy?" And I didn't understand it for a long time. And then when like the dots connected, you know, in my early 20s, I was like, what?
Yeah, I mean, it speaks to like this concept of like, you, even if you don't know it and if you're not aware of it, the behaviors and the patterns and the like nervous system state and all of that that you're in personally is having a direct impact on other people. And you might not be aware of it in the moment. Like, I don't think any parent is, you know, wanting their child to feel unworthy, unloved, whatever it is. But then looking back through a different lens and through a new perspective, or getting the perspective of your child of like, so this is how you experienced it. And that is, you know, your reality. Like, that was how you experienced it. It can be helpful to recognize like, that was of course never my intention, but I can also see how it was received that way, or perceived, or whatever it is.
Absolutely.
So there's always that ripple effect. There's always more to it than what we can really understand sometimes in the moment.
Absolutely. And I think a big piece of that, and this is something I've experienced with clients and in my work, is the ability to see situations and individuals objectively, as opposed to being emotionally attached to it. And that kind of brings me to like this next facet of this, which is emotional immaturity, because there's like it's like, you know, when you hear like the symptoms of a condition and it's like, you know, headaches, bloating, like an allergy on a food, for example, we'll use this example. It like lists all these things, but it's the same symptom for like 5 other conditions. Codependency is kind of that one, like that way. And I think a lot of things in the mental health like world there's overlapping symptoms of these things, or overlapping behaviors. And emotional immaturity and codependency go hand in hand, baby. They do, because what's happening is sort of this experience of not being able to actually like view our counterpart as objectively, and really internalizing and owning their emotional experience as something we're responsible for, right? It's our job to solve, fix, and whenever there is discomfort or a situation, it's because of us. And so when we're parents and we're emotionally immature, a lot of the time what happens is like, maybe our kids express this stuff to us, but then we're not able to like look at it objectively. We're 100% like in the weeds of it. And then we're like, well, I'm sorry, I was such a bad mom. Or like, you know, I mean, I was just listening to a Mel Robbins podcast about this. And as I was listening to it, it was just like, it was really, honestly, it was really beautiful. And I'm reading the book that the podcast was about. It's Adult Children of Emotionally Immature Parents, because at the end of the day, we, we are, like we've talked about, like we're all doing our best, but to understand something and to be able to like, one, learn how, I think when we understand things, like we learn how to heal them better.
Yeah.
And when we don't understand it or we aren't aware of the experience, then it can kind of like control our lives or like run, it sort of is like that whole concept of bleeding on people who didn't cut us, because we don't even know why we're bleeding.
Yeah.
And so this podcast was really interesting, but they talked a lot about like this experience of not being able to like see the parent child relationship as like their experience as objective of like, 5 people can grow up in the same house and have completely different experiences. Yeah. And so it's like that, just that whole concept. And when you're codependent, there's often a lack of emotional, like, I don't always like to use maturity because I don't want to insult anybody. Like none of my intention is to ever to like make someone feel like the victim, which codependents love to live in that victimhood. Okay. I get it. Same. Like this is happening to me, not for me. But at the end of the day, like there has to be, like we've talked about, agency, ownership. We have to like advocate for ourselves and being able to acknowledge like when we're putting the blame outside of ourselves or using it to spin a story of like, and that's why I'm not lovable. Like, oh, I wasn't able to understand or hear your point of view as a child, and so I am a terrible mother, and that affirms my belief in myself that I'm not good enough. And so now I'm in a hustle for the rest of my life to get my worthiness outside of myself through everything I do, everybody I take care of. I'm going to do the most. And in all of that, I'm never going to take care of myself. I am always going to take a back seat. And that is codependency at its finest, y'all.
Yeah. What is it that you say? Something about like sacrificing yourself at the altar of
yes. This is one of my favorites. It's adult children of codependent families will sacrifice the best years of their lives at the altar of their parents' emotional immaturity and call it, like it's their sacred duty. Like call it their sacred duty. Like I'm going to give them everything because it's my duty. But also like, and also like, setting yourself on fire to keep others warm is one I use a lot because it's like at the end of the day, like they might need warmth, but do I need to set myself on fire for that?
Yeah.
Like, no, probably that actually seems pretty harmful.
Yeah.
And that's some of my metaphors for this are quite dramatic. But
we're here for it. So
thank you. It is dramatic.
Yeah. I do love the visual of self-sacrificing for the sake of others as being like, so intimately connected with the codependent patterns, because that's what it is, right? The codependency, dependent, like these two people or multiple people, family systems, whatever it may be, completely like enmeshed and dependent on each other. And when you're doing that, you are abandoning yourself in so many ways because you're trying to caretake or make sure that everyone else is okay or be the peacekeeper, the mediator, all of those things.
Yeah.
And when you're really heavily wrapped up in those systems, like you're sacrificing your own care, tending to your own needs. And sometimes I think it's really hard to even see that when you're in the moment because you're so disconnected from your needs. Like if someone were to say to you like 10 years ago, like, what are your needs? what is it that you need apart
Yeah,
from this system or this person or people or whatever it is? Like, it's really hard when you're like in the thick of those things to recognize, like, oh, this is what I need or this is what I desire. And same with
absolutely.
like in a marriage or a relationship where it's like, okay, so but what do you need to feel loved? What do you need to feel safe and cared for? And if you've never been asked that before, if no one's ever stopped to ask you that, it's like, I don't know. Like, how am I
Absolutely.
supposed to know that, right?
Yeah.
So it's a tough place to be if you've been in that pattern for so long and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, I should probably do something about this.
Yeah. And there are definitely signs, right? Like you don't know until you know, but
Yeah.
like a good indicator is flipping your lid all the time, being so dysregulated that there's fights, like, and I'm not talking about like disagreements, I'm talking about screaming matches,
Yeah.
um, the tendency for like self-harm,
Mm-hmm.
um, for disassociation through substance use,
Yeah.
like there are indicators that like that's happening, because what happens is like you can only sacrifice yourself so many times before your body starts to like literally scream at
Yeah.
you, you know? And something I see a lot in adult children of codependent families is this perception of obligation and this perception of responsibility and feeling stuck.
Mm-hmm.
So a few years ago, I was working through some of this, you know, and I work through it at different times, because it comes up in waves. It's
Mm-hmm.
not, like we've said, we're never fully arrived.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I was working with someone and I was struggling so deeply with the concept of leaving my family's household,
Mm-hmm.
like going on my own. I was 27 and I was like, I cannot not live with them. Like I have to be here. I have to like
Yeah.
fight the good fight, be on like the front lines of like their work stress, their relationship stress, their inability to communicate, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember the day that cuz it was like this conflict of this deep desire for independence and this deep desire for going and like traveling and going and answering some of these calls in my
Yeah.
heart for like exploring and falling in love, things like that, versus, but like they
Yeah.
need me. And I remember saying like, it's crazy because I'm like the prisoner and the guard, like
Mm-hmm.
I have the key to let me out
Mm-hmm.
and the cell is like unlocked, but I can't walk out of it.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's like a thing I've just heard so many people and people I've worked with on codependency deal with, of like this, just this, it's so hard to explain because it's like if you don't feel an emotional obligation to somebody, it's so easy to just be like, leave.
Yeah.
Like what do you mean? Like go live your life.
Yeah.
But when you are in the thick of like this experience of codependency, I'm like, trust me, everybody's trying to leave. Like it's just such an interesting, unique experience, and the invisible chains of it, like,
Yes. Yeah.
and trying to break free from them, is it can be really hard, and it's so emotional because also at the core of it, like there is often deep love, like there is deep love,
Yeah.
um in it, and that's okay. Like it's both can still exist,
Yeah.
you know, like independence um and you can still love people and not sacrifice yourself for that love. And if any love, whether that's romantic, familial, a job, if anything is requiring you to sacrifice
Mm-hmm.
yourself, or is, you know, requiring you to have no boundaries,
Yeah.
then that system is benefiting from you not having boundaries. That system is benefiting from your sacrifice, and it's
Yeah.
not actually supportive to
Yeah.
health, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Again, and I mean, it speaks to like there's always a benefit in all of these behaviors or these patterns that we find ourselves in, where like no one's doing this because sucks the whole time, right? Like
Right.
there's some sort of a benefit for, you know, the person and the environment around it, which is always fun to look into and really hard to look into as well. So,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah.
You mentioned and like the contrast between independence and codependence. Like what are like there's the two extremes, and I
Hmm.
think we've kind of touched on this maybe in previous episodes of like hyper independence, and
Yeah.
there's a big um, cultural push for that, where it's praised. But how do we like find a middle ground?
Yes.
Like good connection, healthy connection.
Yes. So the ideal like connection is interdependence. And that really is like you can be in community, in connection with people, but you also understand where you end and they begin. It's like
Mm.
it's like knowing where your lane is and knowing where their lane is. And being able, instead of like there's no yellow line,
Mm-hmm.
which is codependence, it's like clear where the yellow line is. And also, um, like not picking up and owning. It's a lot of inner work, honestly, because it is truly like understanding autonomy and
Mm-hmm.
individualism in the sense of like, my partner can be upset about something and something can happen that's deeply upsetting and it's
Mm-hmm.
not my fault.
Yeah.
Like there's a difference. Like if I think we see this a lot, ooh, this is good. In our culture, like we think the opposite, like we think the extreme opposite is the solution. No, 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 no.
Yeah.
Because if we're like going from like the opposite of codependency is like narcissism, you don't need to like nothing is my fault. I never need to say sorry. I never need to be a, decent
Yeah.
human and do repair. That's not what I'm saying. But there are things that aren't my fault and I don't need to apologize for everything. But if I did do something that was hurtful and your feelings are hurt, I'm going to go and say, I'm really sorry I said that, or I'm really sorry
Yeah.
this happened. Um, and do the repair that's needed, but being able to recognize like what is actually in someone else's lane versus what's in my lane,
Mm-hmm.
and what am I actually like obligated to do or responsible for.
Yeah.
um and having that healthy, I think like one of the biggest things I've learned in my own journey with it, especially in romantic relationships, is um just the element of truth over people pleasing,
Yeah.
the element of like being truthful and being able to be honest and authentic versus always tell people what is comfortable to hear or keep the peace. And we kind of talked about this a little bit in the last episode of just like the fawn response, right? The peacekeeping. This is a trauma response. And if you grew up in an environment with addiction, or if you grew up in codependency, like peacekeeping is 100% what feels safe.
Mm-hmm.
As a kid, learning like my emotions are upsetting for them, I'm not
Mm-hmm.
going to have any, or they don't have space for my discomfort because work was so stressful or whatever, right? Like there's so many different scenarios in which this can play out. So I'm going to people please my way through it. Everything's fine. Everything's great. Oh, that didn't hurt my feelings. I don't,
Mm-hmm.
we're good. Um, but like as an adult,
Mm-hmm.
and as you move through that, like in relationships, that's actually so damaging.
Mm-hmm.
Romantic relationships, oh, that is like
Mm-hmm.
actually can create more conflict than we realize. My boyfriend and I were having like a conversation somewhat recently, and he was like, this was actually like a huge light bulb moment for me. And so I'm going to share it just because I feel
Mm-hmm.
like it's so relative to anybody out there struggling with codependency, or maybe who has like a people pleasing tendency. Um, I, the people pleasing runs deep, y'all. It's programmed. So there's a lot of moments to avoid conflict or discomfort where I'll just like unconsciously say what is
Mm-hmm.
easier than,
Yeah.
maybe speak the truth. And we weren't even in a situation where like truth was like needing to come up or anything. I wasn't like outwardly I wasn't outwardly like, we weren't having conflict, but we were having a discussion. And he said to me, he was like, the day that you can like give me truth and like, you know, stop pretending I'm perfect will be the day that we're like really in love. And I was like, huh?
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, you tell me what's comfortable to hear instead of the truth so often. And like, I'm not even kidding, the explosions that went off in my head and the light bulb
Mm-hmm.
that came on, because I was like, oh my gosh, you never wanted me to tell you to people please.
Yeah.
He's never wanted me. We've known each other for 10 years and we've
Yeah.
been deeply connected on and off in those 10 years. And he never desired me to keep him comfortable or to like
Yeah.
boost his ego. He
Yeah.
desires truth. And I was like, oh, like I'm safe to tell the truth. Like it's okay for me to tell the truth. And it's safe for us to
Mm-hmm.
like disagree.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean that I'm going to lose love, that he's not going to accept me.
Yeah.
Like actually he desires that type of connection more, someone who's going to be a real, like someone to hold one another accountable and help each other grow versus like, you're so great, babe.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And that was like a huge growth moment for me as a codependent person, like trying to move through a romantic relationship in a more intentional,
Yeah.
conscious way.
Yeah. Absolutely. I think like thinking of the fawn response is so interesting because and especially in like romantic relationships where you're with a partner and you're choosing to default to patterns of, I'm not going to say what I really think, which, what does that mean? That means you're lying to your partner.
Yeah.
Like you're withholding the truth, like your actual truth, which that's not great. Right. And so,
Mm-hmm.
and in that process, you're not communicating like, hey, this is what I actually want, or this is what I actually think about this thing, or this is the belief that I have around this, or this is the vision that I have for our relationship, or whatever it may be. And so you find yourself, if you don't break out of those patterns and
Yeah.
if you continue to people please, number one, you're not engaging in like an authentic relationship or connection. It's not a connection. It's like just this pattern of placating, and it's not helpful
Mm-mm.
at all. And then you find yourself, or you risk finding yourself, 5-10 years down the road, and you're like, I'm not even living a life that I love. I'm not in a relationship that I love. I'm not in a position in my life that I love. I'm not receiving love and affection in a way that feels good for me because I've never actually communicated that I hate when he does XYZ thing and I would prefer this. Like you start to, you create a life that doesn't actually feel good for you. And I think you risk missing out on missing out on the knowledge of what does feel good for you, what your actual beliefs are, because you've been so disconnected from owning your own beliefs. So
Absolutely.
it's like it gets real dicey.
It does. Well, and then like when you were saying that, like I just, it speaks to this, like it's continual self-abandonment.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like it's giving up your sovereignty,
Mm-hmm.
your power, your voice. It's abandonment over and over and over again. And like that, it might seem so minuscule in the moment of like, I like tomatoes and you don't like tomatoes.
Mm-hmm.
But it's those little things that add up to something so much bigger and down the road, like you said, like you're sort of like, then you're going through life like, wait, and then what happens? And I see this a lot. I've seen this in clients. I see this in just in this field is people wake up
Mm-hmm.
one day and the light, the switch has flipped,
Mm-hmm.
and they're like, they either want to light a match on their life
Yeah.
and burn it all to the ground, and they're like, fuck this,
Yeah.
or they are so deeply full of resentment and they don't know
Yes.
why.
Yeah.
They're so full of resentment. And Brene Brown talks about resentment in her book, The Atlas of the Heart. And a lot of people associate resentment with envy, but actually, or like, jealousy. But resentment is actually, I think I said this wrong. Yeah. So a lot of people associate resentment with anger. Like, I'm mad at you. But resentment is actually envy, because what we are really experiencing is like, a great example is kind of like this. We had dinner as a family, my husband and I made dinner. He worked all day, I worked all day, and here I am, the dishes need to be done, and I don't want to wake up to a house full of dishes, and I'm going to do the dishes. Why isn't he doing the dishes? And being angry and resentful of like, why isn't he doing the dishes, right? Because it's not because it's like he's not doing the dishes. It's, how is he okay? How can he not want to do the dishes? Like, how is it okay to him that there's a sink full of dishes? Or like the time off example of like, I experienced this a lot when I worked for my family, where work needed to be done. Like, sometimes I was working from 8 o'clock in the morning till 11 o'clock at night, and I needed a break, but I wasn't able to actually just advocate for myself and say, hey, I need a break. I can't do this. And what happened was I was so resentful, not because I couldn't take a break, but because like, how can they, like, how do they feel the freedom to do that? And not understanding that like the permission is granted from within, or like we have to ask for what we need. And so resentment is like such a big piece of this too, because that's when like relationships can get really ugly, whether it's parent to child, whether it's child to parent, whether it's romantic, like all facets of it. Resentment can build when we're abandoning and abandoning and abandoning, and then we're so angry because we're like, how is this, how come wait, what? How come they are okay with this? How come they don't see? And we're so envious of their ability to just be free in a sense. Because I think that that's like a really big piece too, is kind of like I said this to you today, I think, of like, I envy people who are not codependent or who don't understand it, because there is that piece of like, well, just leave. If it's bad, just leave. Like, if you're not being treated well, or you're not being valued, or it's only what they want, just walk away. And it's like the perception of like, I literally cannot do that. And so that's why like my work and why I became so like passionate about being a codependency coach is because I really truly know what it's like to like feel that perception and have the belief that you literally can't.
It's really tough to be in those moments, like in the thick of it, and feeling like, oh my gosh, I don't know what to do to get out of this cycle. And then, like you mentioned, it's so unhelpful and really hard to hear someone from an outside perspective who's not going through it, who hasn't experienced it, who has like different family dynamics, family systems in place that can't relate at all. And not that you have to go through the exact experience to be able to relate, but someone who just like lacks empathy and understanding. It's really hard to be in that situation, and for someone to just be like, well, can't you just leave? And you're like, yeah, if it were that simple, I would. But
what? No, literally, like, yeah. I'm like, you don't think I've thought of that?
Yeah.
You don't think I thought
it's
of
like
that?
being told to like calm down when
you're upset. Yeah. That
like,
goes really well.
Gee, thanks.
Yeah, that's so funny. Yeah, I think a big piece of this too, for like anyone listening who maybe is like, well, I have some of this, I don't have all of it. I really believe that like all these things are on a spectrum. There's no like, there's no like, this is what it is. It looks different. It seriously looks different in so many different ways. And it can show up in different relationships in different places. There are plenty of relationships I've had that aren't codependent, and not, you know, usually friendships are that way for me, or did show up that way for me. I would like to think moving, at this phase in life, none of my relationships are going to be codependent or are codependent, but that's simply a lie, because the reality is like my family dynamic will always exist. And we have touched on this a little bit. I think the concept of like the roles we're assigned, or like what everyone's used to, and how when we go to heal or when we go to change, it takes adjusting to the new normal. And how, like, one thing I just want to reflect to everybody is like that can happen at different phases and at different times in life. So, where maybe you've done some work and your family has adjusted or your partner has adjusted to the new normal, maybe there's more work to be done down the road, and that will even have different adjustment or different, maybe roles will shift, and how that kind of evolves over time.
Yeah, absolutely. As you were saying that, I was thinking about how the things that you did as a child to survive will potentially destroy your adult relationships. And I think about how something like codependency, and especially in the circumstance that you shared of like growing up in a home with addiction, it's really easy to settle into a codependent role or other roles that kept you safe, and that ensured some sort of connection and attachment to your caregivers. And that's very normal, and it served a purpose. And now in adulthood, you have the opportunity to say like, okay, so it kept me safe, it served a purpose, like it made sense in the context of my life, like I can make sense and meaning of it.
Yeah.
And now if I don't do anything about it, like it's going to destroy my adult relationships with my my romantic relationships, my family, etc.
Yeah.
So I think it's helpful sometimes to look at things through that lens. And like in the previous episode about nervous system stuff as well, and codependency, like these things are on the same wavelength of, it helped you survive at one point. Like it got you the connection, it got you the safety that you needed and that you were craving or desiring or needing in that moment, but it's not going to be a sustainable thing.
No, absolutely. And I love that you just said that, because it really will destroy your adult relationships, even if it's like with the person that you learned codependency with. Like I'm going to use like my mom and I as an example. That has, in adulthood, codependency has been very damaging to her and my relationship. And the what worked really well when I was 11 years old does not work as someone in her late 20s who's almost 30 years old, and it has caused damage. And so for me, that's like been a big piece of like why 5 years ago or more at this point that I like really set out to like heal this stuff, and to learn it and to understand it and to really like move through it. That was a huge motivator for me. And also, like, another really big motivating piece is having young children in your life who are being affected by the codependent patterning, by the guilt trips, that is motivating, because you see these kids, and I don't even have kids yet, but when I do, I don't want them feeling this way. I want them having autonomy. I want them to dream so big that like there's no doubt in their mind that they can achieve something. Or like to know that they're not going to ever lose my love, regardless of whatever goes on in their life. And there have been so many like learning moments as an adult to like see, especially because I moved away for 4 years. I moved back in when I was almost 23, and moving back into my parents' house at 23 years old was a shock to the system. All of that stuff that like kind of was back of mind for a while, or like maybe was showing up in like dating or little things here and there. was just like at my door.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like the floodgates opened and I was like, oh my Lord.
Mm-hmm.
And moving through that was really powerful, and
Yeah.
just seeing it all come forward. And I think like, you know, a big passion of mine, and this has been something I've really wanted to integrate into my work, is helping mothers of codependent families who
Mm-hmm.
want to help their children not repeat this pattern.
Yeah.
My sister has been like such a big inspiration for me in that, because she is such a great mom, and
Yeah.
she works so hard to like give her kids, you know, that sense of autonomy, and to empower them, and to kind of use the moments where codependency does show up. Because the reality is like, I would love to be like, oh my God, I'm going to be a great mom. It's going to be perfect. You guys, it's going to happen.
We're human.
We're human. Like there's going to be some
Yeah.
issues. Okay. And that's just the reality. Right. But the repair is like so essential. And in the moment, or, you know, maybe after the moment passes, but in a moment where we can go and do the repair and recognize, instead of sweeping it under the rug, letting the pattern, the blueprint lay itself.
Yeah.
Like, no. That wasn't correct. I'm going to go correct this. I'm going to do what I need to do.
Yeah.
And so helping like young mothers or mothers move through this stuff is something I'm so deeply passionate about, because I get it, girl. We don't need to, let's heal future generations.
Yeah. It's so powerful to think of it through that lens. Like, the work that you're doing today is impacting your children and their children and,
yeah,
you know, future generations. It's very, very cool.
Yes, it's beautiful stuff. And that's with all work, you know, that's with all healing. And whether it's, you know, whether it's codependency or addiction or nervous system regulation, or, you know, just even like communication. A lot of families don't communicate and don't have discussions, and just normalizing, bringing it all to the surface, and creating safe spaces for all of it.
Yeah. Putting it all on the table.
Oh my gosh, we love it on the table. I put a little too much on the table. My parents are probably like, we really wish you'd stop.
Yeah, they're like, take it back.
Actually, they're like, we don't want to know about that.
Yeah.
What? You guys don't want to know everything about me? That's crazy.
So what can people do? How can they stay in touch on codependency?
Yeah. So we'll put it in the show notes, but you can work with me one-on-one. You can follow me on social media where I talk about these things a lot. And I do have some free offers, some little ones like self-worth starter kits, because ultimately, like, I do believe the foundation of healing codependency or healing enmeshment or any of this really starts with self-worth. Knowing that you're worthy, knowing how to love yourself and advocate for yourself, and like really like go inward and go on that journey of like, but why do I feel this way? Or why am I so comfortable sacrificing myself to earn love? Or why am I hustling for my worthiness outside of myself all the day long, instead of recognizing that I'm inherently worthy because I exist?
Yes.
You know, and that's like such a big piece of this for everybody, is like, anyone listening, you don't have to earn your worth. It's already here because you're here. So your worthiness is not something that you earn. It's something you are. You know, it's literally, it is you. And so helping people, I have a free resource for that, because like, get started, go on that journey. And I definitely, you know, on and off, depending on if we're doing group coaching programs. On my website, though, you can find any of this. And I am currently working on, and I would love to give you a timeline in which I would promise this to all of you. I can't. But I am currently working on a codependency, like, compass, essentially, for understanding like it's just a deep dive on codependency, and it's for anybody who's really wanting to heal. It's a workbook, a digital workbook. And yeah, it's 100% for that experience. So, keep your eyes out for that. We'll keep you posted. We'll link it all in the show notes, but I'm hoping to have that done in the next few weeks. However, we'll just see.
TBD.
Yeah, I don't like to put pressure on things like that. We'll give it time. But yeah, and you can come back to this lovely podcast every week to learn from both of us about all of these things.
Yeah. Amazing. Can't wait to keep talking about it.
Keep unpacking, keep living and learning. That's what we're doing here. We're living and learning.
All right. Well, we will see you guys next week.
Yes, have a lovely day. Thank you so much for listening.
Yes.